What's the best way to explain the Mafia? As an Italian American, that's a tough question to answer. It's not just because there's been so much fiction written about them. They are very different in reality. That was made clear when my wife's cousin got involved with the family business. He ended up dead at the bottom of a volcano in New Jersey. If you want to get into the mind of the modern Mafia, you have to understand their religion. It has nothing to do with Catholicism. In this series, we've seen how dangerous faith can be. But it's also possible for secular philosophies to inspire violence and bloodshed. Enter Mafia. Guns Before God, a new book by journalist Selwyn Robb. Welcome to this channel, where we explore the unexpected ways that faith influences our lives. Today we're talking about organized crime. If that sounds like a departure from our usual fare, stick around until the end of the episode. You'll see how surprisingly relevant this subject is to anyone interested in the psychology of belief. I reached out to author Selwyn Robb, who was kind enough to answer some questions over email. Here's what he had to say. So Selwyn, your book title is Mafia. Guns Before God, the Mafia's True Religion. Can you explain that for us? What does it mean? It means that the Mafia's ideology is all about self-preservation and power. Even if it means killing people, destroying families, and committing crimes against humanity. It's really a secular religion. It's not a religion in the traditional sense of the word, but it certainly functions like one. Its central tenet is do as I say, not as I do. It's always about what's best for me. It's also about being totally without scruples, no matter what, no excuses. And it's about treating everyone with disrespect, including women, children, and the elderly. It's basically an anything-goes philosophy, except for one thing: don't snitch. Why did you decide to write this book? I felt that the Mafia had never been properly explained or understood. People either romanticized it or demonized it. I wanted to get to the core of the organization and explain its inner workings. To do that, I went to the source, speaking to more than 24 mobsters, both current and former, as well as law enforcement and others. You speak to a lot of people for this book. Were you able to develop a theory for why someone would join the Mafia? Most people join the Mafia for the same reasons they join any other gang. It's for protection, belonging, and to settle scores. And then there's money. The Mafia is a business. It doesn't appeal to intellectuals or those who want to make something of themselves. It appeals to insecure, uneducated people with chip on their shoulders. It's a cult-like atmosphere that these gangs provide, is what attracts most of the members. The Mafia is like a fraternity. Once you're in for life. There's no escaping it. Your family will be involved in it. The guys you grew up with will be involved in it. You have no choice. How does the modern Mafia compare to the one we see in movies like The Godfather? Are there differences? Not really. Movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas are actually quite accurate in depicting the Mafia. It's only that they glamorized it, made it seem exciting. The truth is that life in the Mafia is terrible. You live in constant fear of getting whacked. Everyone you meet wants something from you, and the pay is terrible. Being a mobster is hard work with little payoffs. In fact, the higher you climb, the more you realize that it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress or the risk. Speaking of the Mafia today, how active is it? Has it changed? How big is it? It's still around, but it's much smaller than it used to be. There are fewer than 1,000 members left in the United States. They operate on a much smaller scale. Another difference between the Mafia today and the Mafia of old is that there's less respect. Back in the day, there were certain things that you just didn't do. You didn't steal from the Mafia. You didn't sleep with a mobster's wife. You knew what the rules were. Nowadays, the Mafia is more like a street gang. They're into petty stuff like shaking people down, extortion, gambling, drugs, loan sharking. Do they still have the respect they once had? No, absolutely not. Their reputation preceded them. They were once the most feared criminals in the world. Now they're more like a nuisance. They still do bad things, but it's nothing compared to what they used to do. Now, as a journalist, you must have encountered some fear or skepticism from some of the people you reached out to. Was that the case? Yeah, some people were afraid to talk to me, especially those still in the Mafia. They know that once they open their mouths, they're going to implicate themselves. So I had to assure them that I was ungone, use their real names, and that I would disguise their voices. For example, Sal the Boot, who was one of the biggest Mafia bosses in the US, wouldn't talk to me at first. He kept telling me to screw off, to leave him alone. But eventually he came around. We met for dinner at this little Italian restaurant in Staten Island. He opened up to me and told me all sorts of stuff. I was very respectful. I didn't ask him any questions about his crimes. I stuck to safer topics like baseball and politics. I think he appreciated that. Let's talk about respect. He said that the Mafia doesn't command the respect it once did. But in your book, you describe the Mafia as having a sort of religious authority that inspires respect. How does that work? Well, it works through fear. The Mafia is a very secretive organization. No one really knows who's in it or what it's all about. And that mystery inspires fear. Plus, the Mafia has been around for a long time. It's practically a part of the culture. It has its own traditions and rituals, and that gives it a sense of legitimacy. Finally, the Mafia is extremely violent. It's not afraid to use deadly force to achieve its goals. That violence inspires respect, or at least compliance. People respect the Mafia because they're afraid of it. We have a saying in English, "Don't speak unless you're prepared to hear your own funeral dirge." This seems to be an apt description of interacting with the Mafia. In the book, you talk about an unwritten law that you shouldn't ask too many questions. How does that work in practice? Well, in the Mafia, you're supposed to be loyal and keep your mouth shut. Asking too many questions is a sign of disloyalty. It makes the other person uncomfortable. They feel like you're trying to figure them out, like you're trying to see what they're all about. And that's not something they want you to do. The Mafia is shrouded in secrecy. There's a reason for that. Secrecy breeds fear. Fear is what keeps the Mafia together. The Mafia is often depicted as being bound together by blood ties. Is that true? No, it's not. Only Cosa Nostra is bound by blood ties. The other two families are not. The Gambino family, for example, is bound by marriage ties. The Bonanno family is bound by business ties. So it's not exactly a family in the traditional sense of the word. Family is what the Mafia aspires to be, though, a tight-knit group of people who look after one another. But in reality, the Mafia is just a bunch of guys who hang out together and commit crimes. In your research, did you come across any stories that surprised you? One story that really stood out for me was the story of Michael Francesi. He was a soldier in the Genovese crime family, and he killed 3 people in cold blood. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. And while he was in prison, he became a born-again Christian. He started attending church services every day and reading the Bible. He turned his life around completely. He was released from prison after serving 27 years. He's now in his 70s, and he spends his time helping other ex-convicts turn their lives around. Do you think the Mafia will ever disappear completely? Yeah, I do. It's already pretty much disappeared in the US. There's only a handful of members left. The FBI is on the trail of every single one of them, and they won't be around for much longer. And that was our conversation with author Selwyn Ribb. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and joining us next week for another episode.